A reading from Isaiah. On this mountain the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines, of rich food filled with marrow, of well-aged wine strained clear. And he will destroy on this mountain the shroud that is cast over all peoples, the sheet that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death forever. Then the Lord God will wipe away the tears from all faces, and the disgrace of his people he will take away from all the earth. For the Lord has spoken. It will be said on that day, Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him so that he might save us. This is the Lord for whom we have waited. Let us be glad and rejoice in his salvation. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
We will read Psalm 24 responsively. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, the world and those who dwell therein.
The Lord has founded it on the seas and established it upon the rivers.
Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord, and who may stand in God's holy place?
Those with innocent hands and purity of heart, who do not swear on God's name, nor be pledged by what is false.
They shall receive blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of their salvation.
Such is the generation of those who seek you, O Lord, of those who seek your face, O God of Jacob.
Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in.
Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle.
Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, that the King of glory may come in.
Who is the King of glory? Truly the Lord of hosts is the King of glory.
A reading from Revelation. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from your eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. And the one who was seated on the throne said, See, I am making all things new. Also, he said, Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true. Then he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
But some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man
Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in the cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. Tears. How did our culture become so ashamed of tears? Because I can count the number of times that I have been with people, and they were in difficult situations, and they apologize for their tears. Tears are a gift that God has given us, wrapped up in a human package. Today, we celebrate the Feast of All Saints. Today, we celebrate life and death, because we believe that death does not have the final word. Tears might be shed during our service today, and tears are welcome. Tears are your gift to show that you love someone. Look at the story today. When Jesus arrived at the tomb of his friend Lazarus, he wept. Jesus did not try to hide his tears. He did not apologize. He wept openly. And the people that gathered around him said, "Look how Jesus loved his friend." That is powerful. Look at how Jesus loved his friends. There are many other things in the story we can relate to. Mary came up to Jesus and said, "Lord, if you had only been here, my brother would not have died." You ever felt that way? "Lord, if you would have only been here. Lord, if you would have only heard my prayer. Lord, if only." These are deep and honest statements. Don't fear sharing your emotions with God, because it's what friends do. We are deeply honest with one another. And if we can't be honest with God, who can we be honest with? Because these words are prayers of lament. And there is a deep biblical tradition of lament, of people crying out to God. "If only you would have heard my cries," the psalmist says over and over and over again. That's a tradition I hope we can reclaim. When we hear that Jesus arrived at the tomb of his friends and he was greatly disturbed, even though Jesus knew what he was about to do, he was still disturbed. He was still overcome by grief. Jesus could have said easily, "Oh, it's fine. Grief won't bother me at all because I know that I'm going to raise him up here in about 5 minutes." But Jesus doesn't do that. He is overwhelmed in grief over the death of his friend Lazarus. That grief is also a human emotion. And when he asked that the stone be moved that was covering the grave, Martha wove off her hands and said, "Lord, if you do that, there's going to be a stench. This guy has been dead for 4 days. He has not been embalmed or anything. He is going to stink. If you've ever had a dead mouse in your house, you know what that smell is like. And multiply that by about 100 as they're going to open this tomb. Imagine the smell they will get. But Jesus promised that his glory would be revealed. After the command to remove the stone, he commanded, Lazarus, come out, unbind him and let him go. Bring him back into the community of all of us here. We don't know much about Lazarus after that. We really don't hear much about him. We can assume that he followed Jesus. Why would he not follow Jesus after being resurrected? A few scholars even think that Lazarus was the beloved apostle that Jesus spoke about. It led me to a few of these pictures that I came across this week. You know, we got this one here in ancient art. If you look closely, you can see this nice halo around Jesus. He's surrounded by a big crowd. We can imagine those are his disciples and the Jews who had come along who were following him. Mary and Martha are there. One is kneeling, one is standing. I'm not sure which one is which. If you look closely, you might see a guy in red socks and blue knickers kind of standing next to the tomb there. And he is holding his nose. He is getting ready for this. And then good old Lazarus bound up in his burial clothes. And then we have this picture here. The next one we see Lazarus buried next to some skulls. So this is kind of a lower class cemetery, I suppose. And look at his little sheepish way. Yeah, here I am. Hi there, Jesus. But in none of these pictures does Lazarus look all that happy about being resurrected. I don't see a blazing smile. Why might that be? Because, you know, I think it's not death so much that we fear as it is being separated from those that we love here on earth. Because for us, that separation is hard. That grief is hard. And there is no way around it. So oftentimes we try to short-circuit grief to kind of just jump over it and be happy again. But if we do that, we will still grieve in the days ahead, often in a different and even more difficult way. Jesus never promised that life would be easy, but he promised that he would never leave us behind, that Christ would be at our side, bearing his scars. Remember, the resurrected Jesus still carries the scars in his hands and in his feet and in his side from his trials of death and agony and resurrection. For it is by the scars of Jesus that we have hope. We can never get to resurrection except through death. Not that we need to hurry and get there by any means, because this life here is a gift, and it's never to be taken for granted, never to be squandered. But death is not the end. That picture we received today in Revelation, I don't know, when we use that at funerals, I just have this beautiful image. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. And I saw the holy city coming down from God. And I heard a voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them. And he will wipe every tear from their saying that we will never cry, but Christ himself will wipe those tears. Death will be no more, mourning and crying and pain no more, for the first things have passed away. Paul writes, do not lose heart. Even though our outer nature is wasting away, our inner nature is being renewed day by day. Day by day we are being made new with Christ. I'm not sure that I always find that. Jackie was talking about looking in the mirror. I don't know, when I look in the mirror every morning, I see a few more gray hairs, a few more wrinkles, and kind of going, I don't know, it doesn't look all that new to me. But each day we have a new beginning. Each day I grow inside where we can't see it, usually in very tiny amounts, but I grow in my relationship with God. For today we remember all those who have gone before us, and we give thanks to God that we have known them and loved them. We grieve that we are physically separated, and we shed tears of love, because we still love, and that love will never end. When we are born, we leave our mother's womb for something new that holds promise. And when we die into something new. We do not understand what that will be, but we have hope. Hope with a promise. Hope in the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. Hear the words of our Lord, I am making all things new. Be unbound and live in my love. Today,